when we look at Scandinavian countries where they leave the dogs intact, they don't have the huge overpopulation problems that we do. We have tons of research showing the benefits of leaving those intact. So when we do particularly early spay neuter, we're taking out those hormones before these animals reach maturity. This has been shown in cats as well as dogs, that if you spay or neuter before their long bones, so the front leg and hind leg bones have finished growing, the growth plates at the ends of the bones will stay open too long. They don't close when they're supposed to stop the growth. And so by taking away the hormones, those growth plates allow the bones to grow longer. We end up with more elbow dysplasia and more hip dysplasia. The bigger the dog, the worse the problem is. And it's because those leg bones keep pushing up and basically push themselves out of the sockets. And so then we started looking, we also looked at what happens when we spay or neuter after a couple of heats. Well, we ended up with not having that problem, and I saw it in my practice with a lot of people who said, okay, I'll wait till they're like 3-4 years old, make sure I'm not going to breed if I have a show dog, whatever. And then literally within months of the spay or the neuter, they would start to develop arthritis and their thyroid gland would dump. And so they'd end up with other endocrine problems. And we have good evidence that obesity is related to removing the hormones that come from the ovaries and the testicles. So then we have more pancreatitis, more diabetes. And the endocrine system is all the glands in the body. And you can't take one gland away without affecting all the others. So we see so much more Cushing's disease than we used to see. Now, there's a lot of reasons for Cushing's disease, which include glyphosate, GMOs, vaccines, chemicals, blah, blah, blah. But it's also related to taking away hormones. And so then the adrenal glands have to take over because the adrenal glands make both male and female sex hormones. So we end up with all these other problems by taking those hormones away. We see more cancer in both male and female dogs that are spayed and neutered, particularly the larger breeds. This is not the same conversation for cats. So for cat people, go to our page and read the cat stuff. But I know Rachel's a dog person. So for my males, because there's no way that my males are going to go willy-nilly breed females, my males are now intact. Now, this is the first male that I have kept intact because I didn't know all this 14 years ago when I got my last male. So this is all new information that's coming out. So there are so many reasons to leave them intact. Now, for the females, there's this big discussion about pyometra, which is infection of the uterus, which is life-threatening, and mammary cancer. So we looked at a lot of studies out of Sweden, Norway, Denmark, countries where they don't spay and neuter their dogs, and looked at the incidence of mammary cancers, looked at the incidence of pyometras, and there actually were breed differences. So there's actually some genetic predisposition in certain breeds, which was really interesting to see. And they don't have exactly the same breeds there that we do here. But there are just so many good reasons. Now, you could still sterilize your dog. You can do a vasectomy. Our Marlowe is having a vasectomy on Valentine's Day. I thought that was a very appropriate day to do it. Nice. So we'll have videos and more information on that on Valentine's Day. So you can get a vasectomy if you want your male sterilized, but you want to leave those hormones intact. And if your veterinarian tells you your dog is more likely to get prostate cancer if he's left intact, that's wrong. It's the exact opposite. He's more likely to get prostate cancer if he's neutered. Testicular cancers are 99.9% benign. And so if you get a testicular cancer and he gets a big blown up testicle, then you can neuter at that point. And we go into all the differences and what they're more prone to if left intact versus spayed or neutered. So for your female, you've got 4 different options. You can leave them intact. You can do a tubal ligation, same as what we do in women. So you leave all the organs there. They just can't get pregnant. You can do an ovary-sparing spay where you remove the uterus but leave the ovaries. So they still have that hormonal input. So there's no way they're going to get a pyometra, but you still have that small risk of mammary cancer on the other end. But in dogs, only 50% of mammary cancers are malignant. And if you catch the lump early and get it off, you're going to be in good shape. Even for those who are left intact with pyometra is very treatable. It has like a 97.5% survival rate if you diagnose it and get them into surgery. So, okay. And then so the ovary-sparing spay, you're taking out the uterus. But we found really good studies showing that by removing the uterus, it changes brain function. We think that the uterus is this lump that just lays there waiting for babies to come, but it actually produces its own set of hormones and has an effect on other organs in the body. And what's my other one? You can just remove the ovaries and leave the uterus. So with a laparoscopic spay, you can just remove the ovaries. To me, that one makes no sense because we're taking away the hormonal input.
Yeah, I think for me, coming from being, as you are, heavily involved in the rescue world, as you mentioned, I also understand the need for it because my thoughts and views align with yours. I think if we really step back and look at the primary and main reason to do a spay or neuter is really for overpopulation control within cats and dogs, not for any medical necessity. I think that's kind of eye-opening. It kind of just became this protocol that we all just kind of followed blindly, which I did. I mean, my Labrador, gosh, he's 13 now, but I don't know, he was under a year when we got him neutered because that's just what they said to do.
Yeah. Six months has been the line
that's kind
forever.
Of what we thought. And now everything you've said, what we're learning is that this early spay and neuter can cause or impact like joint issues, like you said, hypothyroidism, frequent UTIs. I was reading about that incontinence, like that's
incontinence,
cancer. And it's not to say, oh my gosh, you're going to spay or neuter your dog and then they're going to get sick. And I know that there's a lot of people watching that it's already happened and that, okay, then we just move on and we do whatever we can to give that dog as healthy of a life as possible. This we're sharing is more of a, hey, here's kind of the full picture so that, again, you can make an informed decision and talk to your vet. With Marlowe, my Marlowe, she's, so to respond to your point about the rescue, letting me adopt her. Yes, but I still have to spay her eventually. So I signed a contract. They were just more flexible with me in giving me the length of time that I want because I volunteered with them for so long, but they had to talk about it. And I do need to spay her. So what I'm doing is kind of what you're talking about. I want to wait until she's had her first heat. And honestly, her first heat was really weird. I don't know if it was real, like a full heat. I don't know. And so I want to wait until at least her, I don't know, as long as I can to like 2-3 years old until they start tapping on my door. But I wanted to ask you, of those 4 options, well, of the 2 options, I guess the middle ones, like what would you recommend if you were in my situation?
I'm a huge fan of ovary sparing spay. If you can, I mean, you could do a tubal ligation. It's totally up to you. I don't think removal of the uterus doesn't have as big an impact as removal of the ovaries. So ovary sparing spay or tubal ligation. The great thing about ovary sparing spay is you never have to worry about a pyo. So that takes one of the risks off the table. Veterinarians are not taught in school how to do these procedures. It is, so the vasectomy on our Marlowe, it will be our veterinarian's first time doing one. And she's great. I love her. She's young, she's energetic, and she is innovative, but not integrative. She's a traditional veterinarian. But we went to her with this proposal and said, we will allow him to be your dog to learn on, with the hope that she says, oh, well, this wasn't so bad. And she will now be a resource where other people can go get a vasectomy on their dog if they want a different option.
I know. I am worried about I haven't found anyone yet. Fun fact, I'm moving closer to my mom in a few months. We're moving to be near her. And when she got her dog, the 3 out of the 4 vet clinics in the area refused to even see us because we raw feed. and yeah, I mean,
Oh boy.
actual refuse, like, because they asked on the phone, and it's crazy because they all asked, so they must have it must be becoming more popular in the area to raw feed. But they were like, oh, what do you feed your dog? Like, as I was asking about making an appointment, oh, I raw feed. Oh, unfortunately, we don't allow raw fed dogs in our clinic at all. I'm like, that's special. So I'm sure, yeah.
That's another conversation for another day, but that's a good,
yeah, no, that'll definitely be another day.
Oh man.
So what was my question? It was about, what are your thoughts on the idea that, okay, well, it's usually more on the neuter side, but spay or neuter my dog to help with their behavioral issues?
The studies that we found showed that aggression was actually worse after spay or neuter.
Yeah.
And I went to a behavior lecture probably 20 years ago with one of the leading behaviorists. And she was talking about female dogs and puppies who have fear aggression. And she said a lot of them have that because in the uterine horn, they were next to a male puppy, and it caused changes in their hormones. But she said what you really want to do is leave those females intact longer so they build confidence. You want their hormones to build. You want those female hormones to build to kind of give them that nurturing that the female hormones give, rather than, she basically had too much male hormone in her system. But even on the studies with males, they showed that if you neutered a male, his aggression would become worse.
Yeah, I've seen those, and that's...
So I would not neuter or spay thinking that it's going to change my dog's personality for the better. I would not neuter thinking that it's going to stop my dog from marking, because I've got a lot of spayed females that mark. So it ain't going to change that either. Being in the house, nope, that's a training issue.
Behavioral training issues. So, okay, good. I'm glad. I wasn't sure your thoughts on that, but I figured it would align. But I think to kind of summarize what we've said here is, generally speaking, as long as anybody watching this, I strongly believe, is a responsible pet parent. And so I think what we're saying is, if you're a responsible pet parent that can keep your dog from having unwanted litters or creating them, then there's really no medical need or really even medical benefit in most situations. I don't want to generalize for your dog. And generally speaking, through research, it's likely healthier to not spay or neuter. But if you have to, like I'm in a situation where I have to, eventually to wait as long as possible and to go with the less invasive options.
Yeah. I mean, when we look at Scandinavian countries where they leave the dogs intact, they don't have the huge overpopulation problems that we do. It's called responsible pet ownership. I think that pet parents are going to be the driving force behind changing the veterinary field. I think if more, the veterinarians who are saying, oh, you can't raw feed your dog. Well, that's because a lot of people were coming in with raw fed dogs and they believe the hype that's on AVMA website, AHA website, CDC website, FDA website, which is all hype. And we have lots of studies to show that raw feeding, not a problem. Kibble feeding, you might die of salmonella.
Yes.
But
on that note, anybody watching live or on replay, leave a comment below if Dr. Judy and I should come back on and talk about raw food, if we should talk more about conventional vets and dog food. Another topic that has come up has been, I don't even want to say it because it won't, but we'll just say the annual shots that dogs are given. I have to be careful what I say because social media. So if you guys are interested in those topics,
my soapbox is just going to get taller.
If those are topics you guys would like to hear us talk about together, leave comments down below, even if you're watching on replay, and then we'll consider that. But Dr. Judy, this has been fantastic. Like I said, I have been a big fan of you and the ability to learn from you and your team. Really, I know your daughter's involved and you have this awesome family business. Has really been an honor. I have your book, your products. You have your own products, plus you have products that you recommend to help pet parents like take care of their dogs. And so all your information will be linked down below, but I just want to genuinely thank you, not just for how you've impacted my life, but for stepping out and going against the grain, swimming upstream, as you said, because I know that's not easy. And I know technically you could just go and retire and just relax, but no, you're here fighting for our pets and for us. And for that, I'm very grateful. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to reach more people and educate people. I'm in it for the animals.